office a year after taking up the post. This following a helicopter crash on Thursday, April the 18th in Elgeyo Marakwet. So what next? For a military perspective, I'm joined by Major retired Dhado Godhana, who's also the governor, Tana River County. Many thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me here. And
our condolences indeed to the entire military fraternity, as well as to you being a former military officer.
Thank you also. Also, let me take the opportunity to also join the rest of Kenyans to extend my condolences to the family of General Ogolla and the rest of the officers who lost their lives during the crash, and the entire military fraternity, my colleagues, for that loss. Of course, a big loss, very serious loss that has left all of us in shock. But we pray that God will give them strength for the families and that He rests their souls in eternal peace.
Okay, let's get into matters succession. Right after the news was received, that is on Thursday, after such a tragic incident, who assumes command immediately to avoid a vacuum?
Of course, in military terms, we say that there's no vacuum in command. And immediately one leaves. There's normally the hierarchy of how people assume duty. Immediately, because normally in military, people are trained 2 levels higher, and then they operate 1 level down. So military people are capable of then acting 2 levels higher than their normal level. That makes it easy then for immediately when somebody is not there, for the other one to be able to fill in the gap. So I know already that there's someone acting in that capacity because he already knows what to do. But the office of the commander of the defense forces is a political appointment. And so it is the hands of the president now to decide who to appoint.
Right, and let's get into the succession process.
Yes.
I'd like you to walk us through how this decision will be arrived at in terms of appointing the next military boss. Walk us step by step. Somebody has assumed office right now in acting capacity. So as regards the next military boss, the succession process, how long deliberations will be made before a decision is arrived at? Let's take a look at that.
I don't want to imagine that there is a specific timeline, but and not very different from probably if it were a normal retirement period. You saw the processes that went on when Kibochi was handing over to Ogolla, and you've seen it happen all the time. A general is retiring, another one comes in. So there's a period, of course, when it is decided that there's a changeover based on the retirement period. So that would be the determinant. In this case, it's not a normal retirement; is the loss of life. And so, humanly, I don't want to say it is specific that will take 2 weeks, 3 weeks to do it. It depends on the president, on how he finds it fit to get somebody to replace the general.
And this somebody would come from...
but I can't, I'm not there yet, but what I'm saying is it is human, and it is also, I think, African. Now that we have lost the general, even before we finish mourning, then another one comes in. I think it's also untraditional if then somebody, even at home, somebody passes on and already the children around the boma are starting to imagine succeeding there.
And we're not getting into specific names, but in terms of the military language and protocol, we're looking at the Navy, for instance. We're looking at where the considerations might lie. And therefore, just in layman's language, because there is protocol in the military, there are procedures, to help our viewers understand better where the possible person, the possible military boss could come from, looking at the past and going into the future.
Okay, I know the bigger part of the argument is about the Tonje rules.
Exactly.
Where it sets a procedure or a rotational way of balancing between services, so that we don't have one service that is dominant at that top level. So in the wisdom of Tonje then, out of the many other regulations and transformations that he brought in the forces, is now the issue of succession at the top, that there will be a rotational system where from probably army it goes to the next service that way. So that is what has been applied all through, but that does not limit the president from probably looking at some other things, because it's not that only that determines. There are issues of age, there is issues of experience, there are issues of gender, there are issues of ethnicity. So the president has the latitude to say, for one reason or the other, someone else fits better than so and so. But the Tonje rules becomes a guiding principle or somehow a guiding factor to getting there.
And these recommendations are made to the president, of course, based on competency and who is involved in the decision-making process and as an advisory to the presidency.
Exactly. So, of course, out there is the speculation that probably so-and-so is coming in, so-and-so is coming in. There could be many of those candidates within the hierarchy of the generals. And I'm not trying to say here that the person who is acting is already confirmed. He might be confirmed because, again, looking at the lieutenant generals, there are a number of them. Some in training institutions, some are there in the services, some are there in different offices. So he may come from either of them should the president decide that this is the direction we take.
Right.
Yes.
Now walk us through the military procedures and honors involved in conducting the state funeral for the Chief of Defense Forces of Kenya. Walk us through what we're expecting to see and indeed the military honors considering his distinguished service to the nation.
What happens normally, the military does not guess what it does. So when you hear about military precision, you are talking about procedures that are set before anything else, so that there is a systematic way of the conduct of things. So such a thing would be handled through, will be guided by the standing regulations that will guide the process through which a general, the president, the different cadres within the system are normally handled. So in a situation like this one, what we expect is that the burial of a general, the CDF, is almost similar to that of a head of state. So he's accorded privileges or rights almost to that level. So one is that, as a general, the pallbearers are normally people of his rank. So we'd expect that, as from tomorrow, the people that are carrying the coffin of the general are generals. That is one. Number two, what we'd expect is that then the kind of guard, or in simple language, the kind of parade that you would see there is an upscaled one, not the quarter guard, but a half guard. And again, what we expect is that now that is CDF, there will be a half guard that is inter-service. So we'd see different colors of different uniform, probably from the Navy, from the Army, and from the Air Force. Then, in the process of now moving the coffin, we would probably see them now taking it from one point to another, escorted in the manner that it is required, then received by the generals with the guard in line, or the troops in line, to now usher in or to receive the coffin. And then from there, the normal parade is done, and then it's taken to where it is supposed to be taken. Then the service continues. Right. Or the process of now burial continues, and that would be able to see it to the burial. Right.
Before we get to the burial,
yes,
which is going to be in Siaya, I want to talk about the fact that he was a fighter pilot,
yes,
US trained in the Air Force, as well as a trainer pilot here in the Air Force.
Yes.
Aside from the 19-gun salute, are we likely to see a final salute from the Air Force as well? What are we expecting to see in terms of the military parades and the color and, the celebration really of a life of such a high-ranking military officer?
Right, because he was first an Air Force commander before he became the CDF, and he grew up in the system as a pilot. But leaving aside Ogolla as a pilot, assume it is an Army person, assume it is a Navy person. So there could be provisions that, because of pride of the service, that the people in that service may wish to give their own honor, and in the process of the discussion, which has been going on for the last, from yesterday up to today. So you might see some honor from the Air Force, probably a fly past, just in honor of him as a pilot, because it's a very special honor to be a pilot, not just any other place, but in the Air Force. So we are likely to see that. I'm not saying that I already know what they have agreed, but we might see that kind of honor tomorrow, and probably the day after, during the process of the burial of the general.
And
yes,
lastly, as we finish, it was his wish to be buried within 72 hours of his death. Why this not the case? Why it different, or had he not stated that this was his express wish, how then would things have played themselves out in terms of funeral arrangements and the duration by which, or the timelines in terms of which, when such an incident occurs, such a tragic incident occurs, that a general should be laid to rest?
Ideally, the standing instructions allows also that the military works with the family and normally respects the wish of the family. Should the family say we are not ready probably to do it within this week, we want it to go to next week, so we want it in 2 weeks. For one reason or the other. Of course, there are other traditional issues that must be handled. There's no specific timeline, but of course, they agree. The military would go meet the family members, discuss, give their views, agree to a date.
Right.
So normally it goes that way. In this case, the general had already given his wish that I want to be buried in case I die.
Yeah.
I don't know he said it, but it could have been a long time ago. Sometimes some people may imagine probably he was trying to predict his death.
Yeah.
So he had already given his wish that in the event that I die, I want it done this way. So the family decided to stick to the wish. So the military has no option but to agree, because that is the wish of the late general, and also the family has stuck to it. Should the family, had the family decided, we are not going by his wish, we are going by what we think is convenient, then they could have gone by what the family would have proposed. But in this case, the family has already decided to honor the wish of the late General Ogolla.
Many thanks for that. We've been getting insights from a military perspective from Major Retired Dhado Godhana. He is the governor of Tana River County. The late General Francis Ogolla will be accorded a state funeral, complete with full military honors, starting Saturday at 1 p.m. A statement by the Cabinet Secretary for Defense, Eden Duale, has outlined funeral and burial arrangements that will take place in accordance with established military procedures. We are back with more in just a bit. Stay with Friday Night.